Hey, here are 5 stupid things I've noticed about primary elections. Campaigns are absurdly long. Last year, Canada had its longest federal election campaign in over 140 years. You know how long it was? 78 days. Compare that to American presidential election campaigns, which now routinely last 2 years. The major parties hold their nominating conventions in mid to late summer usually, and then the general election is in early November, which means that presidential campaigns should really only last maybe 3 months tops. Instead, they last for 2 years, and the blame for this exhausting length goes to primary elections, which has candidates now typically declaring their candidacy and beginning their run for the nomination a year before anyone even casts a vote. And when people do finally get to cast their votes in primary elections, it doesn't get that much better, because the thing about primary elections is they pander to extremists. Primary voters tend to belong to the base of their party. For Democrats, this means left-wing liberals. For Republicans, this means people who think that climate change is a hoax and Barack Obama is a secret Muslim Kenyan terrorist. This can be a problem since voters who show up to participate in the general election from both parties tend to be more moderate. Primary elections were started in the first place in order to make the nomination process more democratic, but that doesn't really work when what we end up with is a system where the party purists and ideologues are the ones who choose the candidates that the rest of us then have to vote for. This problem could be ameliorated if more people simply showed up to vote in primary elections, but voter turnout is consistently low, like really low. Average voter turnout for the last round of presidential primaries in 2012 was around 17%. Compare that to 55% turnout in the general election that year. In other words, slightly more than half of the electorate will eventually vote on candidates that were nominated by slightly more than 1/6 of the electorate. But since the folks in that 1/6 are the only ones who actually show up to vote in primaries, they're the ones that wind up holding most of the power. And often they don't seem particularly concerned with nominating candidates who will be viable in a general election, which isn't as big of a deal as you might think, because the candidates themselves don't seem to care about that all that much either, since as soon as the primary elections are over, nominees want us to forget they ever happened. American voters are way too forgetful and way too forgiving. It's these qualities that allow candidates who ran in the primaries as firebrand partisans to reinvent themselves as open-minded, ready-to-compromise moderates in time for the general election. The aforementioned voter apathy also plays a role in enabling this astoundingly transparent act of political sleight of hand. The reason that candidates are able to so easily and strategically adjust their personas to appeal to a broader base of voters ahead of the general election is that most of those voters only started paying attention when it came time for the party conventions. Which brings me to the last stupid thing I'll mention about primary elections. They render conventions little more than political theater. Despite my many problems with them, primary elections are probably a better way of choosing presidential candidates than allowing the party bosses to pick them at the conventions, which is how things were done prior to the advent of primaries in the progressive era. But since most convention delegates arrive having been pledged to support a particular candidate already as a result of the primaries, the conventions themselves are pretty meaningless. They're essentially pageants designed to show off the already chosen nominee. So why have them at all? Why don't the parties just nominate the candidate who did the best in the primaries? That would save them a lot of money. But of course, parties like to throw the conventions. So if they want to have conventions and primaries, here's another suggestion. How about we pass a federal law mandating that all states who hold primary elections have to hold them on the same day, and make it a day that's only like a month before the conventions? That would save all of us a lot of time. That is never going to happen. I could dream. The hardest part is only picking 5. Catch you next time. Hey folks, hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please like it and share it and subscribe to this channel if you're not subbed already. And also, please consider helping me to make more videos like this one by supporting this channel through Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.